What's up YouTube, Cap over here, and welcome to Cap 101, the battle proportion of the series. And today we're going to be taking on Scott, and he's going to bring in quite the team that enjoys their hats. So hats off to them. They like their hats. They've got a bunch of those hats being showcased, and we're going to actually have 3 battles with Scott, as we had a best out of 3 and they were all really good battles. And it wouldn't be fair to just upload one and say, well, yeah, best out of 1, best out of 2. We had 3 battles and they all went to the length and could have gone either way. So it's cool to incorporate that into Cap 101, as this is going to be the last time I bring this team, and you will not see this team ever together again. You might see bits and parts of them, but not together. So let's see if we can end this with a bang, as I didn't know which of his team he'd lead off with. I figured the Pro Pass would enter, but we'll see what happens, as Scott is issuing me a challenge and he sends out Sombrero, sending out a solid hat Pokemon. That's a nice hat, as I sent out Koki, and I figured I'd just go for the X-Scissors, hoping I could take this thing down in one hit. And I don't, and that makes me really scared, because I thought he was just going to go for the Giga Drain and take me down, but I guess he figured I'd switch out, as it's very unusual to stay upon a Grass Pokemon with a Koki, with a Kingler. Not the brightest play on my part, and I predicted over here that he would switch out and go into another Mon, as I could go for another X-Scissors and take out Sombrero, and he doesn't want to lose a hat like that so early on this match, as Devo will make through, and Devo will be quite the Mon to take down, because I don't have any fighting Mons to take it down, nor fighting moves. So unfortunately I have to dwindle this thing down with just constant attacks, as this guy, he's got quite the hat too. He's got an enjoyable hat, not as good as Sombrero, but as effective, as I'm just gonna keep on doing damage to this thing. I went for the Icy Wind because I figured he'd switch out, because he wouldn't be getting anywhere with this guy, and I'd just be doing constant damage on this thing. I still don't know what item this is, as it doesn't showcase any lefties, so I'm still a bit worried about that. As Fish Hat, another fancy hat. Man, Scott, you gotta calm down with your hats, because there's just way too much. Thankfully I do go for the Shadow Ball, but this thing is highly invested in special defense, and will easily take that up with the leftovers and the regenerator. So at this point I'm doing no damage, really, nothing at all, as he's just going to try to set up on me. And I make another prediction over here, because I was hoping he'd think I'd go for a Shadow Ball, do a decent amount of damage as he patches up his special defense, and he'd have to go for a Slack Off, as you know, it's the nice safe play. Fortunately for me, I go into Koki, and Slowking doesn't have as good defense as special defense. So Kingler could take down this thing, or it could go for a knockoff and knock off the item that Fish Hat could possibly have that could really switch the battle in his favor. So he just switches out and goes into Devo, as I'm like, alright, knockoff will knock off an item and do a decent amount of damage. He shows me that he's the Rocky Helmet variant, and I'm just going to go for another knockoff, hoping that I can take this thing down, but it lives on 1 HP. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, maybe 10. But it's still not it's still really sucky to see, as he's going to go for Volt Switch, taking out the star of this team, and goes back into Fish Hat. Once again, just showing me the hats that his team has, as I figured Hufflepuff doesn't have much usage in this battle, and if I can get a Toxic off, that would be awesome. And the real baffling part about this was I outsped this Slowking, so this thing is not invested in any speed. If anything, it might have a negative speed, because Hufflepuff is really slow and Slowking is really slow too. So it's just battle of the slugs. Unfortunately, Hufflepuff does get burnt, and I'm forced to switch out, as I didn't want to stay in against Hufflepuff. Would be good death fodder, as he's just going to go for a Psyshock. And Meloetta would take that relatively well. Take it to the bank, eat it up. Delicious, delicious. As I can go for a Thunderbolt over here and simply do a decent amount of damage on Fish Hat. As we see over here, it does a well over half, and I'm like, all right, Meloetta, you're doing your job so good. Stop, just stop it. And he gets the crit and the burn, which sucks so much because I already had one Pokemon burnt and I already had one crit, and having those two in one turn really was deflating because at this point Meloetta will go down in the next turn regardless of switching out or switching in. So I figured I'd just go for a Hyper Voice, which would be the safer move. But unfortunately for me, Sombrero lives on 1 or 2 or 3, 4 HP, and that's the second time that's happened. And at this point it's getting to my head because when you have a Pokemon that lives on that much, it's not a bueno time. It's not good, as Sombrero is starting to feel the wrath of Jolteon because he's like, yo man, you got a nice hat. It'd be a shame if it went away. And yes, that was a pretty dark threat, as Jolteon is one of those mons that dine and dash. And he'll take the hat. He'll take the hat and wear it, flaunt it, and mock you in front of it. As Jolteon gets another kill, or another KO Pokemon, because Pokemon don't die, they just get KO'd. And I didn't want to take any more additional damage from a Machamp, so I figured I'd just sack off my Hufflepuff, and if Hufflepuff could take a Bullet Punch, that would be really awesome to know in the future. But unfortunately Hufflepuff doesn't and goes down as Death Fodder, as I'm just going to send out Mr. T and possibly get up my rocks up, which is always a good thing because free damage is good damage. It's something that I always say. And we see a witch. That's right, it's a witch, not a warlock. Not a warlock of the swords. It's actually a witch. But it's a male. That's confusing. That's really confusing. And I'm just going to go for Protect. I want to scout out what move this thing was going to go for. And if it was choice in any way, then I could just switch into something and really see what sort of mon this is. As I'm just going to go into Grumpig, because Grumpig had no usage in this battle. And Grumpig has a decent amount of special defense. So I can gather from this information if it's Life Orb or Choice Spect or any of the above, and I see that it does take it down. I do believe he did get a crit. Did he get a crit? I'm not sure, but it is Life Orb, and that's some decent information to know because I can outspeed the thing without worrying about a scarf. So I'm just gonna go for the Shadow Ball, easily take it down. I reveal over here that I am Spec because a normal Shadow Ball shouldn't take out a Miss Mangus, and Fish Hat will come on through, takes a decent amount of rock damage, and Dash and Dine is collecting a bunch of hats over here. He's just putting in the finest work, taking each hat down one at a time, saying that they're too tacky, they're too old, they're not in, it's not what's hip. And Dine and Dash is putting in decent amount of work, bringing me back into this battle, as it's very plausible for me to win at this point. But we're gonna see that we do take out Turban and also take up the Bullet Punch relatively well, as Bonehead will come on through. And at this point I'm hoping, alright, this guy doesn't have a hat, he has a mask. This thing's a bit scary because you know what happened to Jim Carrey when he got the mask. He turned into a monster, and this is what this thing was. It was such a monster, as it easily takes down Jolteon with one Bone Club, not even needing the second one, not at all. And I was hoping that Mr. T could come in and take 2 Bone Clubs from this vicious looking mask thing, and I figured I'd just gather a little more lefty damage, a little more lefty HP. Sorry about that, it's not damage, it's recovery. And I'm like, alright Mr. T, eat it up, and he does not eat it up, and this thing will win him the battle. So this mask looking fella wins him the battle, And that's gonna go to Scott. The first battle goes to Scott as he gets a narrow 1-0 victory, and we unfortunately fall down to this team. And this team will go 2-1, which is really good considering this was the first team that I built for you guys. And I'm gonna give this team a B, you know, somewhere around there, because it did relatively well, and it surprised me on how well the chemistry worked out. So B on this team. Solid team, as it did introduce a bunch of new Pokemon that I didn't really know about, such as the Kingler, the Swirlix, and the Jolteon. So that's always awesome to see and really test out. And you're going to be seeing 2 more battles with Scott, so be sure to check that out. And if you haven't already, subscribe or give this video a like button, as this guy brought in so many hats. So if you wear a hat, or if you like hats, or if you just thought about hats right now, give that like button a little tap. Give that support to the hats, as this team got a hat trick, a couple hats, more than a hat trick. It's a double hat trick of some sorts. And yeah, so be sure to check out the future battles, check out the past battles, check out the team building video. And I'm just gonna end the video over here because I'm starting to ramble on, and when I ramble, it's not good. And with that, this is Cap signing out. It shows me that it's this taunting thing. I'm like, all right, I went for a body slam. That's awesome.
Fluffy, Altaria. I know for another toxic, because I want to get rid of this Altaria.